Welcome to the Cost of Attendance training. Today we will be discussing COA definition and components, expected family contribution, basic need and non-need based aid, COA considerations and restrictions. COA stands for cost of attendance. It is an estimation of what it will reasonably cost a student to attend a given institution for a given period. It's usually one academic year. Student budget process must demonstrate comprehensiveness, reasonableness, systemic development, and documentation. The COA composition is the tuition and fees normally assessed for a student carrying the same academic workload, an allowance for books, supplies, transportation, and miscellaneous personal expenses, an allowance for room and board, for a student with dependents, an allowance for costs expected to be incurred for dependent care, an allowance for the one-time direct cost of obtaining a first professional license or certificate for students who are enrolled in a program that requires such professional licensure or certification. Continuing with COA composition, for study abroad programs approved for credit by the student's home institution, reasonable costs associated with such study. For a student with a disability, an allowance for expenses related to the student's disability. For students engaged in a work experience through a cooperative education program, an allowance for reasonable costs associated with such employment. For students receiving loans, the fees required to receive them. Additional COA considerations. Periods of non-attendance. When a student does not take any classes for a period in the middle of a term, you may not include the student's COA costs for such a period, even if they are studying for tests or coursework related to an eligible program. Adjustments for special circumstances. Professional judgment is defined as a financial aid administrator demonstrating extra discretion in reviewing special student situations on a case-by-case basis to adjust the student's EFC or COA. Professional judgment may only be used for documented special circumstances, such as unusual and involuntary medical or dental costs, etc. Limitations to tuition and fees component. Tuition discounting. Must use an amount that is required for all students in the same course of study. Therefore, a recipient of Title IV aid cannot be assessed charges that are higher than what is charged to a student not receiving aid under the Title IV programs. Continuing with additional COA considerations, finance charges. May not use Title IV funds to pay finance charges or fees that are incurred because a student utilizes a financing method provided by the school to pay for educational expenses over time. Because students or families choose to incur these additional expenses rather than paying the balance due at registration, the additional charges are not considered educational expenses and may not be included in a student's cost of attendance. Test prep class costs may not include in a student's COA the cost for a test prep class which is not part of the student's eligible program. Student eligibility. Eligibility depends on the expected family contribution, year in school, enrollment status, and the cost of attendance at the school. The financial aid office at the college or career school will determine how much financial aid one is eligible to receive. The financial aid staff starts by deciding upon cost of attendance at that school. They then consider EFC. They subtract the EFC from the COA to determine the amount of the financial need and therefore how much need-based aid one can get. To determine how much non-need aid one can get, the school takes cost of attendance and subtracts any financial aid that has already been awarded. EFC is an index number that college financial aid staff use to determine how much financial aid one would receive if the student were to attend their school. The information reported on the FAFSA form is used to calculate the EFC. EFC is calculated according to a formula established by law. The family's taxed and untaxed income, assets, and benefits all could be considered in the formula. Also considered are the family size and the number of family members who will attend college or career school during the year. EFC is not the amount of money the family will have to pay for college, nor is it the amount of federal student aid one will receive. It is a number used by the school to calculate how much financial aid one is eligible to receive. The university uses the formula below to determine a student's financial need. Cost of attendance minus EFC equals financial need. Cost of attendance minus financial aid awarded so far equals eligibility for non-need-based aid. The asterisk here includes aid from all sources such as the school, private scholarship providers, etc. Non-need-based aid is financial aid that is not based on the EFC. What matters is the COA and how much other assistance has been awarded so far. For instance, if the COA is $16,000 and the student has been awarded a total of $4,000 in need-based aid and private scholarships, the student can get up to $12,000 in non-need-based aid. The following are the non-need-based federal student aid programs: the unsubsidized loan, Federal Direct Plus Loan, Teach Grant, Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions, please reach out to your leader for further assistance.